Shabbat Shalom, everybody. In the next few minutes, I want to talk about a very important choice that human beings have. It's a choice that we have every single day. And to do so, I want to start with something that you might have seen on social media, which is that the great anthropologist Margaret Mead apparently was asked the question, can you prove when human civilization began? And so she said, apparently, that there was a discovery of a bone, a leg bone, that had healed, a femur that had healed. And she said this provides evidence for the beginning of human civilization. Why? Because human beings determined that they were going to take care of each other enough for that bone to be able to heal. If there is a lack of civilization, you're going to just leave somebody who is wounded and let nature take its course. So I thought that was interesting, and I looked into it, and it turns out that most anthropological scholars think that Margaret Mead never actually said that, which is kind of a bummer, except that I don't think it really matters whether she said that or not. I think that this idea suggests that we have a fundamental choice. And the choice is, are we going to care for someone who is in pain? Or are we not going to care for someone who is in pain? A few days ago, we had the incredible privilege of hearing from a Holocaust survivor by the name of Toby Levy. She is 91 years old. And when we were preparing for her to come and to speak to our fifth graders and older, and a number of adults were there, we wondered if she would need a seat to sit in. I tell you, she stood for an hour with the most perfect posture, and she didn't need a chair, we needed chairs. And she spoke about how she was hidden by a Polish family, she and her own immediate family, during the Shoah. And she described something which is remarkable, and that is that her father, who was observant, brought his tefillin with him into hiding, a teeny little barn that belonged to this Polish woman and her family. And her uncle, the father's brother, said to him basically, why are you putting on tefillin? And his implication, which he stated to some degree, was, why are you observing the commands of a God who would let this happen? And her father said to his brother that God gives human beings choices. And many people in Germany and Poland are making choices to do horrible things, to inflict unspeakable pain on other people. But this woman and her teenage son actually made the choice to help. And we need to recognize human choice as being essential to what it means to be a human being. The father said we celebrate the good choices that people make. Now, this morning's Torah portion, which Ezra spoke about, describes how the Kohen would make sure to care for someone who needed care. And the Torah says again and again, Vera'ah HaKohen, Vera'ahu HaKohen. The Kohen is constantly looking, constantly examining, constantly making sure that the situation is hopefully improving. The Kohen didn't just do that. The Kohen went outside of the camp with this person, accompanying the person when that person was in quarantine, and then ultimately bringing the person back. Now, true, the Kohen was commanded by God to do this, but the Kohen had to decide each and every time to abide by God's commands and to choose to care for rather than ignore, to choose to engage rather than to walk by. I believe that every human being is provided with multiple options to care for others or to ignore others. And we have to be able to make that choice and to live with that choice. And there are so many different examples of that nationally and internationally. We have here in our congregation a wonderful organization, I've spoken about it before, called Yad B'Yad, which means hands in hand, a group of people who volunteer to provide help. Maybe during a Sheva, maybe if someone needs to be driven to a medical appointment, maybe if someone just had a child and needs help providing groceries. This is a group that chooses to help. They are always looking for more volunteers. And if you're interested, please, as a practical follow-up to my words, come up to me and I will put you in touch with the appropriate people. Now, I want to share with you an experiment that was done at a theology school. So this was a school that trains future religious leaders. So a number of people were given interviews at this theology school to see if they would be admitted to learn to become religious leaders. And they were all kept in a certain waiting room. And they were called one at a time to walk down a hallway and then to sit in the interview with the heads of this school. There turned out to be someone who was planted in the hallway, who was an actor, but who was demonstrating distress, obvious distress. And what's interesting is that some of the candidates walked right by this person on the way to their interview because they were in a hurry. They didn't want to be late for the interview. And some actually stopped and took the time and were late for the interview because they engaged this person. They offered a listening ear, and they actually offered practical offers of help. What they all didn't realize was that what took place in the hallway was the interview. And they were basically being tested to see if they would stop and if they would care. So we salute a Polish woman and her teenage son who chose to care. We salute all of the people in our own lives who sometimes take risks and at the very least take time in order to stop and to care. I would like to bring my comments to a close by quoting the great Dumbledore, who was the spiritual leader of the Harry Potter Hogwarts school. And unlike Margaret Mead, we know for sure that Dumbledore actually said what I'm about to quote. And here is what he said. It is our choices that show who we truly are far more than our abilities. So often, when we are asked to evaluate another person, or asked to assess a child, a partner, a friend, we focus on their abilities. They're so smart, they're so athletic, they're so capable, when what we really should be focusing on are the choices that they make. What kind of choices do they make? What do they say? What do they do? How do they engage with the people around them? Our choices ultimately show who we are far more than our abilities. It's true regarding the choices we make about ourselves. Are we going to apply ourselves? Are we going to apply appropriate self-discipline when necessary? But it's even more true of the choices that we make about other people. And that's true whether we are children or teenagers or wherever we are in our lives. Choices to care or not, choices to listen or not, choices to help or not. And when we have these choices, I hope that we will channel our inner Kohen, our inner priest, and that we will make choices that will help others and at the same time show who we truly are. Shabbat Shalom.